Friday, September 21. From the Seventh Adventist Bible Commentary, Volume 6, page 1066 and 1067, Ellen White comments read, "Did the mind of Agrippa at these words revert to the past history of his family and their fruitless efforts against him whom Paul was preaching? Did he think of his great-grandfather Herod and the massacre of the innocent children of Bethlehem, of his great-uncle Antipas and the murder of John the Baptist, of his own father Agrippa I and the martyrdom of the Apostle James? Did he see in the disasters which speedily befell these kings an evidence of the displeasure of God in consequence of their crimes against his servants? Did the pomp and display of that day remind Agrippa of the time when his own father, a monarch more powerful than he, stood in that same city, attired in glittering robes, while the people shouted that he was a god? Had he forgotten how, even before the admiring shouts had died away, vengeance swift and terrible had befallen the vainglorious king? Something of all this flitted across Agrippa's memory, but his vanity was flattered by the brilliant scene before him, and pride and self-importance banished all nobler thoughts." End of quote. And that brings us to our 3 to 4 discussion questions this week. 1. In class, discuss Paul's decision to appeal to Caesar. Was this decision correct? Well, let's compare that with Acts 25:25. "I found he had done nothing deserving of death, but because he made his appeal to the emperor, I decided to send him to Rome." And chapter 26, verses 31 and 32. "After they left the room, they began saying to one another, 'This man is not doing anything that deserves death or punishment.' Agrippa said to Festus, 'This man could have been set free if he had not appealed to Caesar.'" To what extent can we legitimately make strategic decisions to protect ourselves instead of relying entirely on God's care? 2. Reflect on Paul's statement to Agrippa, "Therefore, King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision." What does it tell us about Paul? How faithful are we to our missionary calling as Christians? 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." Question 3. Paul had a passion for people, not for numbers, but for people. In his final hearing in Caesarea, he said to his audience that his heart's desire was that all of them would be like him, that is, saved by God's grace. As we read in Acts 26:29, Paul replied, "Short time or long, I pray to God that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these chains." He did not wish his own freedom or justice more than he wished them to experience God's salvation. What can we learn from his example here? How much are we willing to sacrifice in order to see the gospel spread? And 4. Agrippa had a chance to hear the gospel right from the mouth of Paul, and yet he rejected it. How can we be careful not to miss great opportunities when they appear right before us? That is, how can we stay spiritually attuned to the realities around us?